All of this, we are joined by Miri Eisin, director of the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism at Reichman University. Miri, it's good to have you with us again. I want to open with the North because the IDF doesn't usually apologize when that happens, if that usually happens even. So I want to ask you the same question. What sort of overlap do we see between Hezbollah and the Lebanese army? What was the Lebanese army doing at a Hezbollah position?
Wouldn't that be the amazing question, Ariel, that I wish we could answer in its own way? The Lebanese army is a military similar in that sense to a lot of the countries around, where the main focus of a country is not necessarily in the regular army, but rather in the forces that have to do with domestic security services, meaning against anybody who's against the country. Lebanese army is built in a series of brigades, and those brigades are deployed all over Lebanon except for the south. In 2006, with the upgraded 1701 decision of the United Nations that upgraded the capabilities of UNIFIL, when UNIFIL was established in 1979, it's been there for so many years, the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, it was in that area of the south because there was no Lebanese army. And one of the big changes that was supposed to have happened from 1701, from 2006, and that's already 17 years ago, is that the Lebanese army was supposed to be working with UNIFIL to to disarm, in terms, anybody who is not the official Lebanese army. So you have them there working with UNIFIL, but they're not supposed to be working with Hezbollah. In my very cynical way, Ariel, say that as if the Lebanese army is supposed to be there to disarm Hezbollah, but sadly, as we know, this is not the way. I completely appreciate the official Israel of absolutely stating clearly that we had no intention and would never target Lebanese army, but there's no question that we were targeting a Hezbollah site and the Lebanese army officer was there. And so it's going to stay that open kind of question. They're only supposed to be down there working with the United Nations force to try to disarm anybody who is not Lebanese army. And if they were inside a Hezbollah post, I don't think that they were trying to disarm them.
Have we seen any sort of statement from the Lebanese government on this?
So the Lebanese government immediately condemned. They were the first ones who put out that it had been a Lebanese officer that had been killed. And in this case, I can say that that's part of the challenge in itself, that the target would have been a Hezbollah target, in addition to the Lebanese officer that was killed. Two Hezbollah fighters, it was announced by Hezbollah, were killed. So you have that connection between them. So Lebanon at this stage along the way has a very complicated arena that they're in. Hezbollah plays that double edge where they are both a political force inside Lebanon, and of course they have their enormous terror military army that they deploy not only in the south, but in the city of Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley. They're part of the players, if you can call it that, inside Lebanon. So there was an official statement. It, of course, is against it. And I think that Israel responded in a very responsible way. We had no intention. And if we inadvertently killed a Lebanese soldier whilst we were trying to attack Hezbollah that has been attacking us for the last 61 days up north every single day, we can handle that. We have shoulders big enough that we certainly did not target Lebanese.
Miri, I want to move down to the south now. The United States now saying that they believe Israel's heavy kinetic action on the ground will be wrapped up by the end of January. That's not that far in the future. Is that realistic?
It's realistic when you look at the goals themselves. This isn't about, moving everything out and destroying the Gaza Strip, as people would perhaps think in the background. This is about destroying the Hamas main military capabilities. You don't have to do it in your goals at high intensity all of the time. The high intensity takes out the different commanders that Pierre talked about before. It's trying to completely destroy their command, their control, and to get to the main cache of weapons. Afterwards, there are 2.2 million people there. You try to do it at a more low intensity, more similar to the type of operations, perhaps, that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, does in some of the different cities of the West Bank, meaning you're outside and you go in and do specific activities. This is not applicable at this stage inside the Gaza Strip because Hamas, the terror organization, have ruled over it for 17 years, because Hamas have built that infrastructure. So now the high intensity, and afterwards, most definitely turning to low intensity. I think that we'll be doing most of the military goals and then complete them at that low intensity stage. I just want to remind people we're only at the beginning of December. January is over a month in that sense, the end of January. That's still a lot of high intensity fighting.
Mary, one of the things you mentioned is the destruction of Hamas's infrastructure, something the IDF has begun work on. There's been much ado over the last few days about flooding the tunnel network. Do we know where that plan stands? There's been some unconfirmed Telegram videos floating out that show, well, flooding it happening, Hamasniks drowning in the tunnels, but nothing confirmed yet.
I haven't seen anything official that's come out from Israel on this at all. I've seen all sorts of different types of things in the media, Ariel, as we know ourselves. There's no question that you want to be looking at that underground subterranean system, which is where the Hamas leaders are, where the Hamas hold their different cache of weapons. We've seen the challenges in the northern Gaza Strip that you have to get to the shafts, and the shafts only lead down to that subterranean arena, and it's hundreds of shafts and hundreds and almost thousands of kilometers in that sense of these underground different systems. So if they do things with flushing out different ideas, they're going to be local, they're going to be done. I'll remind our viewers that years ago, when Israel uncovered tunnels that Hezbollah had built up north from Lebanon into Israel, and it'd be worthwhile to go and look and to find those photographs that the IDF put out at the time. We actually closed those tunnels by flushing in concrete. And then you would see the concrete going in and coming out on the Lebanese side. So I have no doubt whatsoever that there are all sorts of ideas of what you do with the tunneling system, but I can't address any exact specific ways of the way that that's going to be done. It's going to be part of the ongoing battle.
In that case, let's move to the rest of Khan Yunis. This is Hamas's last remaining major stronghold. You still have the ones in Jabalia and some of the other camps across Gaza, but the battle in Khan Yunis has really only just started.